If you all will allow me to rant for a little bit, I hate the new car stratagem so bad. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I dislike it so very much. Just know at the start, I'm talking about playing with random people, so if you're grouping up with 3 friends and having fun with the car, you do you, you have fun, but in random matches, I absolutely despise the car, and I'm at a point where I'm considering kicking people who bring the stratagem because I hate it so much. Let me tell you why I despise this car so much. My biggest gripe with the car is that it forces the entire group to adhere to a different playstyle, or they can actively ignore it and then someone brings in a stratagem that's actively useless. That is not fun. It's not fun to be forced to join into someone else's stratagem that you didn't agree to, and it's not fun to ignore someone else's stratagem and make it completely useless and unfun for them. It creates a really unfun dynamic, and let me kind of go into details about that. If no one gets in the car, then one person can drive around, sure, and they might be able to hit a couple of things, but the tires are going to pop in 5 seconds anyways, and if no one's using the gunning turret, it's either going to get destroyed or it's not going to be effective. Alternatively, everyone can pile into the car, and then you've got people either sitting there doing nothing, or you've got people trying to pop out the window and take pot shots at enemies, but they end up shooting the gunner anyways, which wastes lives and resources. And I get that it's relatively new, so people are still having fun with it, which means people are still bringing it, they're still learning how to use it, they're still kind of experimenting with it, so I understand we're not at like peak efficient gameplay with it yet, but it's still such a frustrating experience because it has such a long call-in. With an 8-minute cooldown and a 10.5-second call-in, what ends up happening is someone says, hey, I'm going to call in a car, so you all wait for him to type in the stratagem, you're fighting enemies, he calls in the car, it takes 11 seconds for it to come in, then it takes 2, 3, 5, 10 seconds for everyone to get organized to get into the car and for it to start driving. In that 30 seconds to 1 minute where you're doing all of that, you all could have already walked to the objective that you're getting to. Not to mention, it's not like the time limit is actually like a problem in the game 99% of the time. Outside of rare missions like Blitz where there's a really short time limit, the 30 to 45 minutes that you have is plenty to walk around the entire map and clear the entire map. We've been doing it since the start of the game when we were hoofing it, so clearly it's possible. And yes, you might get around a little bit faster for a little bit, but as I mentioned, the tires pop on it within a few seconds, and then you've got an unsteerable mess that still someone insists that you get into and they try and skid all around, and it just isn't effective. I dare anyone who is listening to this video, and I'm welcome to being proven wrong, but I dare any of you to show me a clip, or show me an experience, or tell me a time where you had the car and you were actively glad that you had the car stratagem in that situation, and no other stratagem could have solved that situation equally as good or better. I don't think such a situation exists. Because even if it's a situation where like, oh no, we're getting overwhelmed, we need to get out of here fast, it's not like you can call the car in. It's going to take 30 seconds for it to come in, so you can't call it in ahead of time. So where would you use it there when you could use like an orbital napalm barrage and clear out the entire enemies, not need to retreat nearly as much, and make progress towards the objective? Even the mechs, which as you all know, I am no fan of the mechs. I don't like bringing the mechs. I don't think people should bring the mechs. I think they're pretty awful. Are more optimal than the car because at least they can actively capture an objective or do something, and their chances of being destroyed instantly are at least a little lower. I've seen a car drop in and land on its side and then immediately be useless because it's on its side. There are so many things that can go wrong that the odds of everything going right and the car actually being useful for an extended period of time are so astronomically low that again, any other stratagem that you bring would be more useful 99% of the time. I'll use this mission here as an example. I've got the head from the fortress and I need to get across this lake over to the Callin. You can see it right on the other side there. I could have used my jump jet to just jump over there and continue hoofing it, but this person insists I get in a vehicle that has 2 broken wheels. So watch as now instead of just jump jetting across the little chasm, or I could even dove over the chasm, let's be honest, you don't need the jump jet to get over that. It had a little nook for me to jump over. Instead of doing that, now we've got to drive all the way around it on 2 broken wheels. Well, I sit there and do nothing. Because if I pop out, I'm going to drop the thing that I'm carrying, because apparently you can't hang out the window and fire at the same time. Look at how much time is being wasted here as we have to get around the mines. Thank goodness he went around the mines. I've seen so many people just run over the mines, blow up the car and everyone else. That's a whole other problem. And in the end, as you'll see here in a second, the car gets stuck anyways. So what could have taken me 5 seconds to jump jet over and continue running was instead turned into this whole clown circus where instead we did this, where again, I didn't get to engage in the gameplay. I did nothing here. I just sat there. How is this fun? And then to make matters worse, we eventually get out of the car. Okay, we're going to run the rest of the way because the car is stuck. Someone insists on bringing another car over, which again means, okay, instead of just running over the objective, it's right there. I could have been there already. Means now I have to get in another car and sit here and do nothing while someone else gets to play. That's just not fun. It's not a good design. Even in heavy armor, I would have rather walked it and used a stim to run this and combine with my jetpack than sit in the car and do nothing. And it's a good thing that stratagems have different purposes, right? If you want to take down big fortresses, you bring 380 barrages or 500 kgs. If you want to be light and fast, you might bring something like the jump jet to be able to infiltrate certain areas or grab the fortress super samples and then jump out. I like having variety. I like having different stratagems that serve different purposes and allow different play styles. That is a good thing and healthy for the game. But I don't think it's good or healthy to introduce stratagems that, as I've said, force other people to play a certain way. That's not good or fun. And stratagems that don't really have a use outside of the main objectives of the game. Again, the only thing the car really does is get you from point A to point B faster, and when that time limit really doesn't matter, what's the purpose of bringing a stratagem that gets you from point A to point B faster? Well, again, point the jump jet. You see I'm wearing the jump jet now, and you could say that's all it does, but it allows you to scale terrain, it allows you to quickly escape danger, it gives you a lot more versatility, whereas the car only does one thing, and that one thing that it does very poorly. The car is an absolute noob trap, because people see it and say, oh, this is going to be so much fun, and then you realize it's not. You drop it in, and it either hits a mine and gets completely destroyed, the tires pop and it's worthless, no one wants to play with you. There's just so many things that can go wrong with it that I would actually prefer that they just straight up remove it, that they give us some in-lore reason and say, oh, you know, the factory that was making the cars is destroyed, so no more cars, it's gone forever. I would not be disappointed, but I know that people do like it, so I don't want them to take toys away from people. I'm not calling for it to actually be removed. I'm just saying I wouldn't be sad if they did that. So how would I make the car better? You know, I don't like to just complain and not offer solutions, and this is a tough one. And I think the only way that we could validly improve this stratagem is to make it so that there's consensual buy-in from everyone. If everyone wants to play with the car, it is much better if everyone's buying into that. So I think everyone should have to bring the stratagem. But if everyone's going to be bringing the stratagem to enable the Callin, that means it needs to be at least 4 stratagems worth of Callin power. That means that the tires should not pop or pop nearly as fast. It should have a whole lot more tankiness. It'll need a little bit more power than just one heavy machine gun. And it would need to call in much faster so that you could use it as like, oh man, we're surrounded, call it in. And it comes in within 2 seconds, it swoops in on Eagle, gets dropped, y'all jump in and drive away. That's the only thing I can really think of that would make the car a little bit better, because then at least everyone's buying into and saying, yes, I want to enable this play style. Because again, if you're not buying into it because you're playing with randoms, which I believe most people do, they drop in with just randoms and play the game in quick play. If you don't want to use the car, you're either forced to do it or you're ignoring it and hurting someone else's fun, and neither of those options rock. I also will say I've seen a few times where people steal other people's cars, and then there's this whole like jealousy of like, hey, that's my stratagem, I called that in, and now you're stealing my car, so now I'm going to blow it up because I don't want you to play with my toy. And again, that just wastes time, resources, all of that. It enables some toxic gameplay. So there's my rant. I had to get it off my chest. I absolutely despise the car. I despise seeing people bring the car. I think it is the least fun thing we've ever had. Again, I don't want them to take it away from other people, but I also don't want to deal with other people bringing it in my missions, because then I either have to force myself to play their way or ignore them, and as I've said, that's not fun. Let me know what you say in the comments down below. Tell me if you enjoy the car, or if you're like me and a certified car hater, and if you have one of those stories of the car actually being useful, I'd love to hear it. Put it down below. As always, have a blessed day.